This is the entrance to the Ceres Gallery, which is in the Chelsea Art District of Manhattan, and is, open all week and staffed by our director. And this is how you would enter if you were coming to the gallery and coming to the opening. The Ceres Gallery is a nonprofit feminist gallery that was started 40 years ago by a group of women who wanted to give women a place to have their art. And that art could be sculpture, any kind of art, basically, and have a show. So this is Elizabeth's show. And it really was helping Elizabeth hang her show in 2017 when I got excited about the Ceres Gallery and the possibility, encouraged by her and her husband, that I could possibly have a show in New York. And I had to apply to the Ceres Gallery with 10 photographs of my work and tell them why. So the work had to be approved by the whole membership, basically, in order to be able to be a member. And so being a member allows me to have a piece in the in several group shows during the year, and also to have a solo show every 2 or 3 years. And so this is my year. And I've been working on this show for about 3 years. When I felt like I was ready to start painting things that really, really mattered to me from my heart, it was the Borderlands. I had heard this is it. Oops.
No, you're good.
No, I was good.
Just
right?
talk into that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, you're right.
No, I need to be on the other
You're
side.
right.
Right. Okay, so this is the entry to the show. And it really was living in Guatemala when I was in my 20s, where I really fell in love with the Guatemalan people. And when I heard there were Guatemalans on the border, I needed to find out why were they leaving their beautiful country, their wonderful families, and crossing this really treacherous Sonoran desert where many died on the way or were injured, lost, never found. And so Ray and I traveled with an organization out of Tucson that had been operating for almost 20 years to put water along the trails to sustain people and keep them from dying of dehydration. And this is just on the US side. The migrants, whoops, here we go. And these are photographs of the migrants I met while working. These are actually paintings, yeah. Paintings of I took photographs of the people I met with their permission and said, I want to do portraits because I really felt like I needed to give them the migrants' faces. So people could see who are these people. On our journey with Humane Borders, where I took photographs, we encountered a number of crosses, and we've met the artist who about 10 years ago or more started making crosses. He had kind of the same urge as I did, to make his art reflect the things that he felt were really important that were going on. And so around 4,000 people have died in the last 20 years, and 250 died last year. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They feel like so many people are missing. So we would encounter crosses that he had put up, or volunteers that are placed at places where the remains of people have been found. And so that's the story about the crosses. And he's still doing that. So the way that we met the migrants is that we heard that there were hundreds of migrants being dropped in Deming on the street on Mother's Day. in 2019. And I heard there were Guatemalans among them and wanted to know more. And so Ray and I just drove down to the fairgrounds where people had been taken, and our own Silver City Unitarians came to the front and started supporting them with food and clothes and supporting the organizations that started to form to help take care of people. And this is the footsteps, the wall, and some of the terrain that people have to cross. There's so much to know about this whole immigration situation, and it's so complicated. There's so many reasons, and a big part of it is climate change, as well as poverty, American foreign policy, violence, the gangs that have been sent that are kidnapping people. I started using the palette knife on this one, which was a kind of a new approach. And this is of the water bottles, the water stations that No More Deaths, Humane Borders, Tucson Samaritans are working to make sure people have water. This one, we see the border wall again. The name of the middle painting is The Wall Divides, and it has had such an impact environmentally on endangered species, on destroying native lands, on killing the saguaros, which only reside here in the Sonoran Desert. They were dug up and supposedly they tried to replant them, but they died anyway. So again, it's the beauty and the peril. I guess that was the juxtaposition of the two, because I've always loved the landscape of this area, but hidden within that is the terrible circumstances. Rebecca Fowler from Humane Borders had a quote that really struck me. It was, "Hauntingly beautiful, ironically deadly desert landscape." People die of dehydration and heat stroke, exposure, injuries. When Trump raised the wall that's now like 30 feet with terrible razor wire on top, you actually have to just see it to believe it. And you stand at the bottom and look up, you cannot believe the impact, how intimidating it is. And apparently there's this neurosurgeon in San Diego who's studying the number of people, is often young men who died falling off the wall trying to climb over it, or get traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. What happened? Oh, it just needs to turn? Yeah. Oh, there. And then this is the monsoons that often people have to have weather that they can't predict and travel through. So I started painting about 22 years ago when I was thinking about retiring as a nurse midwife, and it has really been an adventure. And my journey to explore this borderland from the perspective of the migrant, you know, I'm often thinking to myself, what would I do? what would I do if my children or grandchildren were being threatened with starvation or violence? People feel like they can't, they can't go back, and they're willing to face whatever is out there. So this one is our last wall. The far left is the blue flag for water, because people can pass by, and they're often traveling at night in order to avoid detection and avoid dehydration from the heat, or avoid the heat. And so they can't see the blue barrels that are full of water. And so the Humane Borders fills the tanks. And also they have to test the water to be sure it hasn't been poisoned by the vigilantes that also are roaming this part of the border, feeling like they have the right to detain or even harm people trying to pass. And so that was a shocker for Ray and I. And we were like, what are you doing? When the Humane Borders volunteers were testing the water. This is the Acatillo, which is really beautiful when it blooms with these beautiful, beautiful red flowers, and then has these really spiny thorns, which a lot of the desert does. A lot of the plants are very hard to navigate, especially in the dark. So I wanted to bring forward that difficulty of the hidden within the beauty. And this is one who is one of the workers in Palomas, Mexico, where the migrants were sent in 2019 when Trump closed the border and had the policy of remain in Mexico. And Juan has been assisted by the Unitarians to help with migration, but he's also been working with the schools to create greenhouses and gardens for the schools in Palomas, because so the little village there just across the border from Deming, where we would go every week to do clinics when the shelter was open in 2019. Then suddenly Palomas was full of had migrants, and some of them during the Title 42, which was the COVID-19 excuse for pushing people back to Palomas and putting them in quarantine. There had to be two shelters, one for the asylum seekers who were waiting to get an appointment in the United States to have their case heard for asylum, and then the people who were just deported across the border and needed to move on, but often were hungry and tired and dirty and just needing something. So the fire station in Palomas became that place as a transit way stop, and the Unitarians provided go bags or bags with crackers and some sausages and sustenance for them to carry with them. And then on the left painting is basically how I feel about if I were facing a journey where I couldn't turn back, and basically asking that question.